wake up every day saying what I do has to be meaningful for the region I'm living and working in, because that region has to be meaningful for all the other regions we're engaging with the world.
A similar impulse brought us all here. We all have a curiosity. I think everybody wants to make the world a better place. That means different things to different people. They think they know what it's going to be like to be here and how it's going to go, and you do your best to plan and prepare and set yourself up for success, but you have no idea what you're going to find here. And that's because you're going to meet so many amazing people who are going to open your eyes to different things. They're going to have different perspectives, different needs, different life experiences, and that's going to change the way you think and look at things and think about things yourself.
The best metaphor would be like a band that requires a lot of coordination, but it doesn't seem like it's really coordinated. It seems like rather organic, because everybody is, of course, right, interested in their own issues, but at the same time, we're here on a common endeavor, right, which is advancing knowledge. The most important thing that happens at the EUI, I think, is first helping each other to find and ask the right questions. I think when I engage with the other researchers that I mentor, the first thing that I have to help them with is what are the relevant questions of today, right? How do we can participate in the conversations with key knowledge that could advance our purpose?
At EUI, research takes place under the blue sky. Literary, look at this, but also figuratively, because we have complete freedom and autonomy to choose our research topic, our methodology, the format, whether this is individual or collaborative research. And we are encouraged to be bold, as they say, to go beyond the state of art. And this means also taking risks.
EUI Research is one thing, and then it's also many things, right? The one thing is curiosity driven. I don't know anybody at the EUI who does research on topics because they're told to. I know a lot of people at EUI who come up with the questions and then try to figure out how to answer them. And that kind of curiosity driven research is what makes us a university. It's an area where you can only be constrained by your ability to come up with a good question.
So I think that my research basically starts from a calling into question of an assumption that has dominated a lot of the fields that I engage with, which is that influence always or necessarily flows from the sort of like majority population to the minority populations. In my thesis, I sort of ask whether the opposite is also possible.
Platforms like Airbnb or Booking created amazingly efficient markets where house owners can rent their properties and tourists can find accommodations at very reasonable prices. This phenomenon completely reshaped the city with winners and losers. My main research project focuses on taxation of digital platforms.
I'm looking at these structural effects that AI integrated in social media platforms have, not just on one people, but on groups of people, communities, societies.
I focus on sound and hearing practices and how they affect the actions, the emotions, the experience, and memory of people in different contexts.
My research is broadly defined as understanding the consequences of different types of political elites on policy outcomes, specifically transparency policies, and political outcomes, especially related to democracy.
My research project focuses on understanding how tourism, especially through short-term rental platforms, can affect our neighborhoods. And in particular, I use Florence to look at how the rapid increase in these platforms can affect local businesses and where residents decide to live.
My research topic investigates how material culture reveals the processes of the standardization of the past through the study of historical reconstruction.
My research looks at the concept of territory as a victim, which is what I call an hybrid concept, in the sense that it combines indigenous ontology and this indigenous understanding of territory as a living being with the Western idea of right and victimhood.
I'm looking at the influence that protests have on the public and then also on parties and the political and societal system in a broader field. And in particular, I look at migration-related protests. Protests are very, very much context-related, and it's also quite known that it's more or less impossible to foresee, first of all, when protests will actually happen, and then even more when they will have an effect on the public or also on parties or policies.
It was really in 2019, through the combined impact of the student climate strikes, particularly the courageous and far-sighted children in Australia that organized this massive protest. Together we're having a toddler who was at that time 5 years old, and really reflecting upon what world would he live in and what world would his children and grandchildren live in the context of the climate crisis. And I think it was really reflecting that and the gravity of the situation. To be quite frank, feeling a little bit of sense of shame that I've been indifferent towards the climate crisis, that I came to the point and realization that I had a duty to act.
Now, what do we do with this research? I think that's the real question that you want to answer. And what we do with this research is try to push out knowledge to the extent to which we can, to try to push out our ability to interpret the world, so method, you might think of it, to the best extent we can, to try to push out our collection of observations about the world, but also to try to push out solutions to the most pressing problems we face.
I think research at the EUI is many things. It's on the one hand the wealth of expertise and experience that is brought by our chairs, by our professors, by our senior faculty, but it's also, very importantly, the really innovative and exciting work that's being done by our researchers, but also increasingly the inputs from our students, from the participants in executive education. So I really think research is something that is done here in many different ways, on many different topics.
How are they going to reconnect with large proportions of the electorate that really, really dislike them?
And the positions they take aren't even particularly popular ones.
That's an economic divide and a cultural divide, an educational divide.
From the social media perspective as well, I really feel this re-emergence of a gender divide.
You know, how much of this is a transnational concerted effort with a script? It's an anti-gender ideology, whatever it is that they define as the gender ideology, because that term is their construct.
I think it's really important to make the point that those people have a very clear gender ideology, right? It's not the woke people, it's the conservative people, it's the people who want to kind of supposedly return to the good old times.
You know, big tech power found a bigger source of power, which is political power.
They use this content without any notification, any notice, any fair remuneration to train their models.
So yes, rules are rules, but our rules can change from day to day. Right, so what does that mean?
By thinking in this way as a rule-based order is we are here to get out of the international system and create a rule-based order where we dictate the new rules. The new rules are negotiated bilaterally, and we don't care about the system.
We know that the disruption is coming. What could we add to the Draghi report that would make it better?
You cannot leave that to economists or to the tech people, while the real questions are actually political and social.
What makes the EUI special is that we do not have one dominant research culture. We all come from different educational backgrounds, from different countries, and we are bringing our own experiences here to the EUI. And then we co-create our own EUI research culture together. And this becomes an open, multilingual and interdisciplinary research culture, which continuously keeps changing as professors and researchers come and go.
I think what that future might be has obviously changed a lot over the past 50 years, but I think this spirit of academic independence and original thinking and all this bold innovation, I think, is still there. It's one thing to be an established professor and to come with your research agenda, which hopefully also in itself is bold and innovative, but then to have the inputs from your researchers and your students in this community, I think is what makes it really lively and exciting. And I think, you know, all of that is really housed in a format and an environment which is inherently European and international in its approach. And that, again, sort of reinforces this ambition that there already is to really push the agenda and the visions that we might already have for Europe by thinking out of the box and asking really critical questions to ourselves and trying to present better answers. So that, for me, is really what research at the EUI is about.
What we do here is really studying issues, problems that our communities face broadly, both in terms of, for example, geopolitics, or in terms of economic problems, you know, in general problems that affect societies directly.
This research is about hypothesizing that there exists a collusive culture in Central and Eastern European countries, EU member states. From the perspective of economic theory, cartels are almost always harmful to consumers and to the economy.
It's as if you have basically invited someone to a buffet and you have not provided the cutlery. The person cannot eat, right? So it's the same thing. So if these investments and efforts toward their success is basically not provided, the end game is that these people are not going to succeed, and therefore the programs are going to fail. We would not see basically a permanent shift, and we would observe the same trends of maybe 20 years ago of leaderships being mostly white men.
At the moment, we're finding there's a bit of a backlash actually against singling out any particular group or kind of person in history. And yet women's history has been around now for about half a century as a really strong field. I'm really interested in the ways in which looking at different sites of politics in the past reveals that women have been much more active and contributed much more to how we think and what we do than we have realised.
And this report is based on a significant collaborative effort. So it involved over 20 researchers working at the EUI on the digital transformation. And in the report we addressed a number of important digital policy topics, including competition, innovation, platform regulation, emerging technologies such as AI, data policy, media and democracy, and geopolitics, among others. And each contribution to this report is a short think piece that translates academic ideas into concrete and actionable policy recommendations.
Doing research at the EUI means looking well beyond our borders of the EU. It means positioning ourselves with other researchers and academics, but not just researchers in academia, researchers and policymakers in different regions of the world, in different national governments, because you have this dual responsibility of knowledge, of engagement, of making meaningful policies, and of doing that in such a way that you're contributing to this global positioning of one of many global actors.
And that's just like music. You get together and you say, you know what, this one works, this one doesn't work. I like your voice on this kind of material. I like your guitar playing on this kind of material. And you know, you come together and you make something that's completely different and hopefully better than what you even thought it could be.